Hold on tight, 'cause you know tomorrow may not bring that same thing that you said last night. Woo! Every time I find a little peace of mind, I hold on tight, 'cause tomorrow may not bring the very same thing. No, 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 said none of the right there. You that care all, just for me. I'm so glad that you that care all, just for me. I'm so glad that you that care all, for a sinner like me. The missing piece of the puzzle has been put in place. You now know why you thought the way you did. You're no longer alone. You are loved and wanted. Well, this interview is kind of important to me because it's about my little girl who was raised without a father, and I'm her father. So it's going to be a little rough for me, but she wants to tell her story. So here she goes. Well, hello, MaryAnn. How you doing?
I'm good, and you, Dad?
I'm doing simply fantastic, and thank you for asking. I know today we're going to talk about how it was growing up without a parent in your life, specifically without your father as you were growing up. So, as we get started here, could you just give us a little background on where you grew up, schools you went to, things of that nature, please?
I was born in Colorado. I grew up, you might be familiar with the area, like off of 36th in York.
Yeah.
And I went to Harrington Elementary for kindergarten, Annunciation for elementary and middle school. And for high school, I went to East, home of the Mighty Angels.
Okay, well, you know your daddy's an angel too. He's an angel too.
Okay.
Okay, so what I would like to get into and educate me as we go as well. What was it like growing up without a father in the home, in your life, should I say? Were there other role models, or what was it like to you?
Yeah, I mean, I did have other role models. My uncles were my role models. So, they were like my father figure. And there was, one guy that my mom, was seeing who treated me like I was his child. And I looked up to him as my dad as well. And, on Sundays, that was like family time. He had time where him and my mom would do things. And, he even had, children that were grown, and, when they would come to visit, it was just like one big family. We all did things together, continuation. He was there. So, in a sense, he was my dad in growing up.
Did you call him dad?
No, I didn't call him dad. I called him by his name, but, to me, he was my dad. And, for the longest, I would always say, oh, that's my dad, just because I didn't know. I knew of you, but I didn't know you.
Well, that's what I kind of would like to know too. As you were growing up, did your mother or your aunt ever talk to you about your father?
I mean, they just told me your name. That's like pretty much it. They didn't know where you were. Nothing bad was ever said about you or anything like that. So they didn't put like how you have some mothers, oh, your dad is this, your dad, you know, is a piece of trash, or your dad is a deadbeat. None of that was ever said. It was just, we don't know where your dad is, but this is your dad's name.
Let me just catch you up. Uh, your mother was just a little older, and your dad was a lot mannish, okay? And when it happened, it was a shock to me as a young man. I'm sure it was a shock to your mother, who was a very beautiful young lady at that time, and it was just your mannish dad. Without getting into too much personal things, your mother was a beautiful woman. It was your dad. After she became pregnant, I got in some trouble with some police, and for me not to go to prison, I had to go to the military. When I went to the military and came back, I thought, or I don't know where I got it, that you all had moved to Albuquerque.
Mm,
And
okay.
and I really only knew the name Mary. That's all. And I do remember one time through the years though, to just get that excuse out the way that I didn't know you. And I just wanted the audience to really understand that around when you were about 6 to 9 years old, do you remember running into me?
Yeah. That was
Yeah.
like a no, that was actually like I said, my uncles, was one of my father figures. So my aunt and them had took all of us to the drive-in off of Colfax there, across the street from, where University in the VA is. And we were in the concession stand. I remember we were getting like popcorn, candy, soda. I vaguely remember the interaction between you and I. You had spoke to me. I mean, nothing wrong or nothing bad or anything. And I do remember my aunt turning around, telling my cousin, who was older than us, to gather all of us, the younger ones, and take us back to the car. And that's like the last I've heard or anything about that day. But I vaguely remember that little part.
Well, that's because that was that little part. I mean, out of all your life, that was that little part. I mean, there don't even need to talk about when you saw your dad, but more importantly, when I saw you. And your dad at that time was into things that he shouldn't have been into. And when I go to the drive-in a lot of times, it wasn't for what you think. When I saw you at the drive-in, I walked in and I didn't know anybody except your aunt. Somewhere in there, I believe, they acknowledged or made it very aware that this is your daughter. I was there to do other things. It wasn't to
Mhm.
just watch the movie. I had little holes on the side. People would meet me in there to do whatever junk your dad was doing. When I walked into the concession stand, I did see you. And baby, this is what I want to kind of tell people. Whatever your daddy was doing, he considered it too busy for you. And I apologize. Because as I sit here and talk about I went to the war and all this stuff, and I only knew that one name, I did run across you. And I did just what you said. It was like I just walked away. And as you put it, never saw you again. But God blessed us, kept me alive, kept you alive. And then it came a time to where I ran into a friend of yours, or a friend of your aunt. You wouldn't have known this guy, but a friend of your aunt. And from way back then, I think you were probably over 30 by then. It's been a long
Mm-hmm.
time. And
Mm-hmm.
when I ran into him, I asked him, "Do you know where they're at?" And he said, "Oh, they stay right over here." So that's when I gave him my information. And I guess you can tell us what happened when you received that information.
Yeah, it's like I had already been like trying to find that other side of my family, like your side of the family and like you, because I had a thyroid condition and I didn't know where it came from, or why it was even happening. So I had just like started looking because I was like, well, it's not on my mom's side, so it has to be on my dad's side. That's the only other thing that could explain it. So I went to work, and I pulled up my email. And before I was going into a meeting, I happened to see the email from my aunt. And when I opened it, she said, your dad is trying to reach you. I have his information. Contact me if you want to talk to him. I went ahead and did my meeting, but all in the meeting, I'm thinking, like, well, why now? What's going on? Is this for real? It was just a lot of things that were going through my mind.
Let me let me interrupt right here. All these things going through your mind when you were growing up, before right before this time. How did being without me, how did that leave you thinking as a young girl, a young lady, to not have your father?
You just had the thoughts of, why wasn't I wanted, or was I not good enough? Like, why was I abandoned? What was wrong with me? Or just a lot of things. As a child, you think of things and not realizing that there's nothing wrong with you for whatever the circumstances or the reason was. you know that other person just wasn't in your life. And of course, it can raises, as some people say, daddy issues, for girls, because then you tend to look, well, not look, but you tend to get with people who may have the same qualities, like, always want to run away, don't want to be committed, because that's how you feel and that's what you think. So in your mind, you're thinking that that's a normal or healthy relationship, that it's okay for people to walk out on you. So you kind of just build, I guess, that skin around it. Okay, this is normal when it's not normal. If that makes sense. So yeah, and I think that's where a lot of the daddy issues, come in for women. And, you know, men probably have the same issues too, just because they don't have that father figure to go to talk about manly things.
It's like you wanted to know, but you didn't want to know. So when I reached out to you, you were apprehensive about calling me, or was it? Do you think it was a fear, nervousness, or you just didn't want to get involved, or?
I think for so long, if anybody was to ask me about my dad, I'd be like, I don't know where he's at. I don't know my dad, you
Mm.
know. Um, so I guess that just have became my standard answer. I don't know. I don't know where he's at. So when the email came, yes, it was, I think it was kind of like a sign of relief. At the same time, like, well, why? You know, um, but I believe God, heard my silent cry, or my silent plea, and he, made that happen.
What was
You
your
know,
silent plea that
I
he
just
made
want
happen?
I just wanted to know, my other family. I wanted to know, was this thyroid disease from that side of the family? Did I have other brothers and sisters out there? Or like, was I the only one? You know, um,
No.
it was I think it was just, a lot that I wanted to know. And I guess a lot for me, I just wanted the answer of, why. Why wasn't you around?
So you wanted to know why I wasn't around, and yet here I am after 30 something years. I pop up to my hey, it's Big Papa, Daddy home, and all this kind of. And you're like, where you been? Why'd you leave me?
Right. I mean, yeah, because like I said, I went back and forth on that and answering the email. And, when I did, my aunt, she sent me the information. And I had a friend, and this is when you was over in the Holly Center. And we drove by it. The door was open, and she's like, do you want to go in? And I was like, no. And she's like, well, we're right here. I mean, we're literally in the car in front of the place. And I was like, no, I don't want to go in. And she's like, why? And I was like, well, I said, what if, he doesn't want to see me? What if he rejects me? And she's like, well, if he was going to do that, he wouldn't have reached out trying to find you. And so, it's just a lot of that just had to kind of sit with me. And so, as the week went by, that weekend, I'm at work, I'm taking deep breaths, I'm like, okay, I just got to do it. So on my break, that's when I went ahead and called you and, told you my name was Mary and I was your daughter. And it was like this silence for a minute. I think I had to ask, hello, are you still there? And you you were like, yes, I'm here, You have questions, just like I have questions.
I sure did, but you answered a lot of them real quick. Number one, were you married and have any children? Ooh wee, ooh wee. You was married with children, or you had been married and had children. Something was going on, and
Yeah.
and I mean, four grandkids when I met you. Four.
Yes.
And so we go along, we meet each other, you finally get over it. I say I'm sorry 120 times and I come up with my excuses for why. But really the only thing is I just didn't live up to my responsibility. Period. There's no I went to the military. I babe, your dad was just what they call out there. And I apologize to you, your mother, and your whole family. So we get together. You tell me about the four kids. Can you tell me what it was like meeting your other sisters, your other brothers, your other mothers? Just because you were raised an only child, right?
Yeah, I'm
Uh-huh.
the only child my mother had.
Okay, now you meet your dad, and it's a whole nother ball game now.
Well, yeah, because like I said, I'm the only child that my mother had, and in actuality, she almost lost me, towards the end.
I didn't know that.
But yeah, but God had a purpose and He had a plan, you know, and so my siblings growing up were, my aunt's kids, my cousins. Those are like who I considered my, siblings in growing up. And so when I met you and then, realized that, oh, I do have other siblings, um, it was a little bit overwhelming at first. And I think it was only because, that was the day I had met Uncle Ricky. And then I want to say, like, maybe an hour or two later, Sydney, Iman, and Darcy walked in. And it was just, like Uncle Ricky had kept telling you, Billy, she looks just like mama. She looks just like mama. And you were like, yeah, I know, I know. And then when Sydney walked in, she's like, I knew right off the bat you were my sister because you look just like my grandma. And it's like just everybody, was just like, like happy, to see me. They're just, welcoming you with open arms.
What about
And
your Uncle James and your used to be the big brother David? I'm sure he was glad to talk to you.
yeah, I mean, like Uncle James, he said the same thing, when he first met me, was like, she looks like mama. And even Auntie Curlin on Thanksgiving, she was sitting there and she was eating, and she was like, Billy, she looks just like mama. So they all just kept saying the same thing, like she looks just, like mama. David, yeah, he was just like, I'm just happy because, I no longer have to be the oldest. You're here now. So, they can call me, but you're gonna be the first one that they call for something first. So,
Well, you are my first, and I just wanted you to know, even though I acted so foolishly and selfishly and so irresponsibly, when your dad started catching on, I just want you to know that I told everybody about you, especially my sons, because I knew I had a daughter named Mary, and so they couldn't talk to nobody named Mary. Don't bring me nobody named Mary. Okay, Mary's off. Don't even mess with nobody named Mary, because I
uh,
have told them all about you. So I'm getting a feeling that when you did come in and you did get with the rest of your nieces and nephews and all that, you did know that you had been loved and thought about. Could you feel that?
yeah, I did. And I mean, they all said the same thing. We knew you were out there. We just didn't know where you were or how to find you. But Dad always told us about you. Dad always made sure we knew that we had a sister out there.
Yep, I have a daughter out there named Mary, and all you all better pay attention. And when I found you, it was really like um, a part of my life was filled.
For me, just hearing them all, say the same thing, and, just welcoming you with open arms, it was, you know, um, that missing piece of the puzzle had been placed together. Because, for so long, I always wondered why, you know, um, I didn't look like certain people over here, or, why my build or my stature was different from others. Um, why I did things, a little differently.
You
And
you
it was
know
nothing bad, but
you know the reason you do things a little different because you know your dad's a little touched, right? So when you say you did things differently, I bet you really did. I bet you did, but no, baby, we loved you. Your dad put the word out, and once I caught somebody that I knew you, it was only a matter of time. And I really thank you for at least going on and getting past your fear and getting in touch with me because look how, I mean, you brought me so much joy. It's like from that moment on, it's like I don't know what life would be without you. I really
Mhm.
don't. I mean, you have been so fulfilling. And my grandkids, I love them. And then you're making me old. I have 4 great grandchildren out of your clan. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
wow. And everything just blossomed and God just took that mess of your fathers, that horrible mess, in some kind of way, he fixes it. You know what I mean? He gives us this opportunity. And I'm thankful for you. And I didn't really want to get like this. I wanted you to know that we look for you. I look for you. Once I found somebody, I was there. We found you. I'm so glad that you answered the call. You didn't have to be that way. You didn't have to forgive your father. You didn't have to say I want to meet you anything, but you did. And those are the
Hmm.
things that I thank God for is even when I'm in my mess, he still protects me. He knows how my heart was. I just wasn't there like I should have been. And a lot of men, I just want to say, you know, think about your children. Don't be like I was. Just
Hmm.
think about it. So we get together, you find out where that thyroid stuff come from, huh?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, your grandma, your aunties. I don't know what
Cousins.
it is. They all catch it. I think I
Hmm.
might have met one male out of the family that caught it, but the women, they all I don't know what it is.
Pretty much.
I mean, really. And so you fell right in line with everything. And I'm so thankful because you helped me so much with my show. You're one of the producers. You're always there. You're so loving. You're so kind. I just thank God for you. You even had to help your dad out after we got together. I was going through that change when I decided I was going to stop being what I was being. And you remember all of that stuff and all of that happened. So
Yeah.
right when we met each other, in my personal life, stuff started jumping off, and you stayed with me through that, baby. And I love you for that. You didn't turn your back on me. And I know I probably looked real funny from when you met me and from when you had to come help me through that situation when you and Bobby was picking stuff up out the alley and all that stuff. But I thank you. I really do. I thank you. And you've been a beautiful daughter since the moment that we got together. I'm sure I would have had a beautiful time if I would have been the father I should have been to you. I hope that the things that you were damaged with, I pray that God heals you. I'm sorry that you had those feelings. I'm sure those kind of emotions help mess with you in your relationships and just your development, period. To have a parent out the home and especially your father. You know, I just want to say I'm sorry again. I really mean that. And I love you dearly. But if you had something to say to someone that, went through these things and had to go without a father, is there something that you would like to say that might encourage them?
Everybody's situation is different. I guess you have to go back to, that child, that little boy or that little girl, and just, no matter how they're feeling or what they're thinking, because as a child, you can't understand the rhymes or the reasons why. But as you get older, if you can just allow yourself to tell that little girl, that little boy that, it's okay. It wasn't nothing that you did, you're loved, you're wanted, you know, um, just allow those thoughts to be put to rest. I think that, will heal a lot of issues, daddy issues or just any type of issues.
So when you say daddy issues, I kind of get an idea of what you mean. And I'm sure there were a lot of issues that you went through. Abandonment issues sound like.
Hmm. But yeah,
And
you do feel abandoned,
it makes
not
you feel less
wanted.
than.
Yeah, you actually, you start to run into what is called that imposter syndrome. So you're thinking you're not good enough, you're not wanted, you can't do this, you can't do that. But in actuality, you can, because you could do anything that you put your mind to.
Amen. And I'm glad you put your mind to forgiving an OG for his knucklehead. and I love you. Are you feeling all right being with your new family?
Yeah, I mean, we have our ups and our downs, our disagreements. I mean, I may not always agree with what you say. You may not always agree with what I
Oh, we
say.
had one this morning. Oh yeah, we had one this morning, and I'm standing firm on mine because you all weren't right. I'm not gonna tell the story right now, but you weren't right. You the oldest, and that was cold blooded what y'all did to your daddy. But go ahead, I'm gonna listen.
I mean, and I think like, like when we first met, I know there was some things, you tried to like tell me to do, I'm your dad, like on here. And I think, kind of like in my head, it was like, I was like 30 some years old. I was like, I'm 30 plus years old. You can't raise me now,
Hey man,
so,
that's true.
but I think, we just had to work through things. And I think, once we find our common ground, we're good. And, like I said, we don't always agree on things. We don't see eye to eye. But, I guess that's just what makes us human. And, like I always like tell my kids, you don't get to pick your family. God picks your family for you. So you learn to deal with it and roll with the punches. I love my family. I mean, every family has its issues. I love my family. For me, it's like, it's okay. I can tell that little girl, your dad does love you. You know, your family loves you. You're wanted. It's just things didn't work out the way that you felt they should have worked out, or the way you wanted it to work out. So that little girl, she could be at peace with that.
Amen. But can I just share this? It was nothing for you to work out. You were the baby.
Mm-hmm.
That was my responsibility to work it out. And drop the ball. Again. Your daddy got drop the ball stories up to here, okay? Okay. But as long as love you. And that, I'm sure you've been around long enough and been around enough to know that we all knew about you.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know how to get to you. And I praise God that we're together. So, my darling, now that you got me all clowny on the show and everything, is there anything else you would like to talk about your dad?
No, Dad, I love you, Dad. I mean, like I said, we have our agreements. We're gonna agree to disagree.
Yes. I'm agreeing to be a better father to you, to my grandkids, and to my great grandkids until the Father takes me home. Okay, baby?
Okay, Dad.
I thank you.
You're welcome, Dad. God does things all in His timing.
Well, another episode of Where Were You? And we would like to thank our guests for this evening. Also want to thank New Me. New Me helps sponsor Where Were You? So go on and check it out. New Me /Arkway. Also, go on and hit that like. Go on and hit subscribe. Go on and hit that share. Go on and leave a comment. And if you find anyone that has a story, let me know. And hey, you bless someone today.